A failed two-point conversion with 10 seconds left in that game? The most electric preseason game of the year, some are saying. That's what I'm seeing on the Twitter sphere. 13-12. Your Ravens win. Get in the win column for the first time in this year's preseason. There's a lot to unpack. It was a really fun game to watch, especially when you compare it to that first preseason game of the year. And we're going to get all into it. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'm Joey Petersen. This is Ravens Rundown, the one place a Ravens fan needs to be for all season long. Here's the stats. 13-12 is the final score. Josh Johnson had himself a day. We'll get into that. 11 for 11, 120 yards and a touchdown. Chris Collier also played pretty well. 12 carries, 29 yards. Dayton Wade had some big receptions and a touchdown. Taylor Heineke, fine for Atlanta. Nothing great, nothing bad. Jason McClellan had his fair share of carries. Chris Blair, pretty good game for the Falcons as well. 12-13 was your final score, and it was a barn burner. The score I don't think indicates how fun of a game it was to watch, because there are times where the Ravens could have gone up by even more than they did. Right? There were a lot of times where the Ravens offense did get on the other side of the field, and then you saw a kind of random crazy snap, and that gave the Falcons the ball back when the Ravens were on the 30. You also saw things just like, I don't know, it just was so much more positive than last game was. I think last game to me, there's 10 completed passes in the entire thing, and you're just kind of watching a team drag all game long, not get a lot of first downs, not do a lot of fun things, not get a lot of big plays. And this game was the total opposite. 301 yards of total offense. That is so much more, almost doubles what last week's was. 21 for 25. That's what? Quick math. 84% completion percentage, 230 yards, 30 carries, 71 yards, 2.4 yards per carry. Running the ball is still something we kind of need to keep an eye on. Turnovers, you did have one, did have a fumble. Time of possession, pretty even, but favored the Ravens with 31 minutes, 45 seconds. My player of the game, the guy who played his best half of football, maybe in the entire National Football League, when you take into account all the halves of football he's played, it's Josh Johnson. 11 completions, 11 attempts, 120 yards, and a touchdown. And this was a guy who last week went 4 for 12. With 37 yards, no touchdowns, and then 8 days later comes out and he goes 11 for 11 with 120 yards and a touchdown? Fantastic game for Josh Johnson. And this was one of the position battles that I was talking about. Okay, we need to key into this. Looking at this game. This was the number one for me. Devin Leary, Josh Johnson. Who's going to get that QB2 spot? And I think at the end of this game, there's no doubt it's going to Josh Johnson. We didn't see a lot of Devin Leary, and I think that speaks volumes. I'll talk about that in just a little bit. 3 for 5 on the day, 24 yards, had a couple of good passes, made a good scramble for a third down conversion for a first down, and then you saw a lot more of Emory Jones. 7 completions, 9 attempts, 100 yards. He hit Dayton Wade on a little stop and go, the classic backyard route you run with your friends. He hit him for a touchdown. That was right in the breadbasket. But when you look at all these quarterbacks, and you saw how the coaching staff handled last week with putting Josh Johnson in for the whole first half, then Devin Leary basically in for the whole second half. The fact that Emory Jones started this second half, and if you didn't tune into the game, Emory Jones started this second half. The fact that happened, I think, proved all I needed to see, that this coaching staff thinks Josh Johnson's the guy. They don't need to see much more Devin Leary. They want to see more Emory Jones and Devin Leary. I thought maybe a month ago this team was going to take 3 quarterbacks into this season on the roster. I didn't want that to happen, but that was my thoughts. After today, I got a good feeling that they might just be taking 2. I think Josh Johnson might be the guy. I don't know. He goes for 11 for 11. I don't know what more you could ask from him. So what do you guys think? Is Josh Johnson QB2 after his performance? I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse. I don't want to say, okay, we're good at quarterback because he played so well, because he did have that game 6 days ago. And there might be better options in free agency for a backup quarterback. But you let me know. Y for yes, and for no down in the comment section below. Let's take a look at this wide receiver room. Dayton Wade, another really great game. 2 receptions, 67 yards, and a touchdown. His stop and go, and I know it probably wouldn't have happened against first stringers, but still, taking advantage of playing against second string talent, that stop and go was pretty nasty. Got wide open. Emory Jones delivered a beautiful ball, catch, touchdown. Keith Kirkwood, man, he's a guy whose name I've called a lot over the past 2 weeks. 2 receptions, 37 yards. He had the longest reception of last week. And then Tylan Wallace, 1 reception, 31 yards on the day. Got them into the red zone and led to that touchdown from the pass from Josh Johnson to Owen Wright. But, man, he just looked electric when he got the ball in his hands. Made a couple guys miss. Josh Johnson hit him on a perfect ball in the middle of the field. Our biggest gain of the day, 31 yards. This receiver core looked really good. It was a lot of fun to get to see them catch more balls. They won an entire preseason game last week, only caught 10 passes. It's hard to judge a wide receiver core that only catches 10 passes. But before we get into my other thoughts on today's game, let's hear a word from our sponsor, and that is Fanatics. Guys, winter's coming. The cold days in the bank are going to be here before you know it. Let's prepare a little bit. Chatsports.com/Ravens hoodie, 50% off. You'll find this sweet Baltimore Ravens purple hoodie for 50% off. Again, head down to chatsports.com/Ravens hoodie. Fanatics has the best gear for the best prices. They're always doing great deals, always offering free shipping every now and then, here and there. But if you go to chatsports.com/Ravens hoodie, it will send you directly to this piece for 50% off. So head there now. Let's take a look at the Falcons. 343 yards of total offense, 5.4 yards per play, 17 for 33 passing. Taylor Heineke and Paddock, not the greatest day. They could have probably had that number be up a little bit, but they were kind of missing some passes. Now, this is the biggest area of concern for me. 31 carries, 151 yards, almost 5 yards a carry. And I think you saw this last week against the Eagles. Kind of the same thing. It looked like they could run the ball pretty easily. Jace McClellan, rookie out of Alabama, he went undrafted, but he had himself a day. 11 carries, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Broke off a 17-yard run at one point. And it's not like yes, 17 yards for one run. That's a long run. But they didn't break off many of those. It's not like they broke off a lot of long runs and then a lot of short runs. It just seemed like they were getting 5-6 yards a pop for the entire game. Carlos Washington Jr. had a great game, 9 carries, 39 yards. 9 yards is his longest one. It just looked like anytime that Falcons offense was stalling, they're like, okay, let's rush the football. Let's run the football. Because it was just easy for them. And I think that's something that's going to get figured out. When you got a guy like Roquan Smith in there, it's not going to be the same. And you've got just so much movement on that defensive line and in that linebacker room when you're talking about preseason football. So that's going to get ironed out at some point. I'm not saying this is the biggest concern and that we need to be freaking out and doing all this overreaction stuff to it. But I do think it's something to keep an eye on. I do think it's something to monitor, something to think about, and something to take away from today's game as, okay, that could have been better. So who do you guys think was today's best player from the Ravens game? I think it was Josh Johnson. I think there's like no doubt it was Josh Johnson. Beau Brade had a pretty good game as well. He's a guy that's fighting for a roster spot. He had a great game. Emory Jones honestly looked pretty good. Chris Collier had a good game as well. Anthony Miller, a couple catches. But I think you got to go with Josh Johnson. At least that's my thoughts. Let me know in the comment section down below. Let's take a look at the schedule. See what's coming up for your Baltimore Ravens. They will head to Lambeau Field. Thank God they're going to Lambeau when it's August and not when it is December, because that's not a fun place to play. Another early kick. Not as early, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central. We will be live for that game starting at 12 p.m. Central. I think it'll be a lot of fun. I had a ton of fun on today's live stream with all the boys talking about Ravens, talking about the game, just all hanging out together. For live watch parties, for every single Ravens game, for as long as they make it into the playoffs this year, I'll be here. I want you to be there as well. Hit that sub button down below. Let's grow this channel. Let's grow this family.